like many kids, I guess I got into comics from like the Incredible Hulk, Wonder Woman TV shows as a toddler, and I've always read comics. But when I was about 12, I had a best friend who drew comics and was like, "We should draw comics." So we just really got serious about it in junior high, and I started self-publishing in 9th grade.
Wow.
And just kind of never looked back. I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, so we had one convention a year that was in a basement room of a hotel. My friend and I were basically the only comic book artists in our area, so it's not like we didn't even know you could have a table. We went there to go find Judge Dredd comics and stuff. But we had one comic book store in the Little Rock area, and the guy who owns it was a late 70s, early 80s self-publisher, so he had a little bit of a soft spot, and he provided us the crucial shelf space to put up our first janky issues of our book. And to our surprise, the books actually sold out. So in the early 90s in Arkansas, as a result, there was a little bit of a micro mini comics explosion. And people were getting a little more excited about self-publishing and stuff for a while. I also started playing in bands around that time. And once my band started touring, it hit me that every time we went on tour, I could copy up a bunch of books and sell them. And that was my primary means of distribution until I finally started offset printing around the year 2000 with a series called Walkie Talkie, and had to learn the ins and outs of distributing through Diamond. And it took a while, but that was sort of the first book that I did that was able to actually get in regular comic book stores. And it wasn't until the release of a collection of those books called Tiny Giants in 2003 that I started actually going to comic book shows, which was a mind-altering experience for me. Because previously, the only sense of like subcultural community I was really tied to was through the punk underground. And to see something just as vibrant and just as involved and just as creative happening in this other thing I'd been a part of my whole life just blew my mind. I was able to quit my job and go full-time cartoonist about 8 or 9 months after the book came out, but I will admit it's not because of any success of Swallow Me Whole. Though Swallow Me Whole continues to be a successful book. At the time the book came out, I was talking with some other writers who wound up hiring me to draw a book that they did. That money, along with basically money that I was pocketing, selling the book at at conventions and stuff, gave me a little window of opportunity where I knew that I needed to quit my job just to see if it was possible to survive as a full-time cartoonist. So while working a full-time job, I was trying to still dedicate about 30 hours a week to drawing Swallow Me Whole. Simply the privilege of having enough time to work 40 or 50 hours a week on drawing might be the only thing that provides you the opportunity to make a living. It's almost like a snake eating its tail.
Yeah.
So I knew that was my opportunity to just quit my job and see how long this thing would last.
Yeah.
I've managed to just eke out a living until the release of this book and hopefully the next. So I think it's just a matter of this sort of like incremental chaos, where you're extremely comfortable for 6 months and then for 6 months you're very, very broke. Which is exciting in some ways, it's terrifying in some ways.
Maybe it helps drive you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you definitely pick up the pace a little bit when you realize you have like $400 left for the next 4 months.